The Nexus G1 camera started when two brothers in Australia got so frustrated with their Blackmagic Pocket 6K that they ripped out its sensor, its mainboard, everything that makes the image, and built an entirely new camera around it.
We got into filmmaking after our work as industrial designers because we see it as the pinnacle of creativity. It's just absolutely amazing.
Some on the internet called it vaporware. Then they posted footage from the Australian rainforest. 6K, no overheating.
The approach we've taken with designing the Nexus is we've thought about everything up front that we can think of. We've taken enormous feedback from the community and we've used our own experience to think of everything that would be useful and make a cinema camera work better.
Thomas and Timothy Boland are here to tell us everything. And they brought an exclusive. A new universal mount system they haven't announced anywhere else. This is Focus Check.
This is Focus Check, the weekly CineTech podcast.
Welcome everybody to episode 95 of CineD Focus Check podcast. It's my honor today on this special episode to welcome Timothy and Thomas Boland from Nexus Camera in Australia. How are you doing, guys?
Great. Thanks a lot, Nino, for inviting us.
Well, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. I mean, there's been so much interest about your project since you first announced the Nexus Camera G1 camera. And I think the community has a lot of questions. So I'm very honored to have you on board and just to do a bit of a deep dive on your project.
Great. Sounds great. Let's go.
Let's get started with the origin story. I mean, I think a lot of people have questions about, like how two guys from Australia that, don't get me wrong, a lot of people haven't heard about before, came out of nowhere to announce a camera that looks like $1 million. I mean, the website, everything, the presentation about the Nexus G1 is so highly professional that it seems like you've been doing this forever. So people want to know about where you guys are coming from. So basically, let's talk about the origin story and this breaking point. I think every great I'll build it myself project starts with a moment of pure frustration. My guess is, what was the specific rigging disaster or shoot failure with a Pocket 6K that finally made you say, enough, we'll make our own camera?
Well, I wouldn't say it's a specific thing. I would say it's experience over time. But I'll just go back to your first question about how we came to do this, basically. Basically, we are industrial designers. We worked as industrial designers for nearly a decade, Tim more than a decade. And we've worked with our father, who's a professional industrial designer, done a lot of product development internationally. He actually used to teach industrial design at university here in Australia.
With industrial design, we'll also mention that it's a bit different too over in Europe and in the US. Here in Australia, industrial design encompasses a lot more expertise than it does over there. So not only does it include the external design of a product like this, but also the actual understanding of the materials and manufacturing, right down to understanding how to actually turn something that can be produced in a production tooling.
Yeah, so to give you a bit of idea about our background, it's not focused on styling and aesthetics only. It's focused on engineering, material science, and electronics, and basically manufacturing process, everything that goes into making a product manufacturable, work, and be reliable. So that's our background. We're multidisciplined. We have other expertise as well. We have expertise in 3D modeling and all these steps through to developing a product. And we got into filmmaking after our work as industrial designers because we see it as the pinnacle of creativity. It's just absolutely amazing.
And this is where design by filmmakers for filmmakers come from. We just thought, well, we're filmmakers, we're building this thing, designed by filmmakers for filmmakers, and we just put that there. And it's people really like it, and it really matches what we're doing. So
yes, so
been there ever since.
So it comes from us naturally being problem solvers and designers. We were working with cinema cameras because we want the absolute maximum in quality. We want that excellent color science, that high resolution, but we found there was all these deficiencies. Basically, it's really easy to get a really nice sensor in a box now. The difficulty comes with having all the other support equipment that you need to actually run the thing. Having a power system, having control over your lens, having a screen you can see, having ND filters and having to swap them from different scenarios when you go outside or inside. So we came to see that there's amazing quality out there, but it was really hard to use all these cameras, and you always had to rig them up to solve the issues they had. And then, of course, when you go to another movement, say if you're changing from handheld to a gimbal, you got to break the whole rig down again. And what we found personally is it takes you out of the creative mind space. You end up not thinking about what you're filming and shooting your shots. You end up thinking about your camera and your rigging and how to make this happen and how do I break this down for my gimbal and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we found back then we had to almost stop when we're filming sometimes and stand back from the gear and just go, what are we actually trying to capture here? Not where's this going and where's the mounting plate to put it on that? A gimbal, where's the mounting plate to put it back on the slider? And so it sort of over time developed by all these little things that we did to our own gear. And then eventually we had a module that sort of took a lot of control over some of our cinema cameras we were using. And then we actually posted that online, and a lot of people thought, wow, that's really interesting. That'd be great to have something like that.
Yeah, so we naturally kept developing systems to improve what our work and what we were doing. But eventually it got to the point we were like, we know what we need to do. We need to make a camera. And that's where the Nexus has come from.
But you've both really worked on high-end films as well, right? I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I saw your IMDb credits, Thomas. You've been working on.
Maybe it's a different.
That's interesting. Yeah, I wanted to ask you that because there's like somebody who worked in visual effects, who has Blood Diamond and Last Samurai as credits. So I was wondering if that's you.
No, I do have experience in visual effects and CGI, but okay.
I wasn't sure about
we've
that.
Done briefly. Yeah. We mostly do very high production value films for commercial companies to show off what they do in a super exciting manner. That's what we were all about. And we work as a small team, just us two, and sometimes with a couple more people. So we found basically when you're working as a small team, you have to wear all the caps yourself. Yeah. Because you haven't got someone operating the camera for you, everything has to be streamlined so that you can focus on creativity. It's really different to working in a big team.
Absolutely. I thought actually that there's, because I looked at that IMDb profile, but I think somebody's taking credit for your work because the Nexus, there's links to the Nexus camera on that IMDb page. Yes. So I guess maybe their system kind of misaligns information as well. Yeah, I was wondering. I thought that you guys were more like the indie filmmaker types like us. Yeah, that's great. Okay, cool. So, but as a family business, you said that your father is an industrial designer, very experienced one. Like, how do these conversations work? Because I guess, I guess you guys will be more accustomed to working with cameras than he is. I'm just guessing. Maybe he's also from the camera, like experienced with cameras. But how do these typical conversations work when you're like, okay, we want to build a camera, and you go to him for advice, or?
Well, we work as a team, we brainstorm, and we all have input into the end result. So we bring in our particular personal experience with using cameras in a small team and in the environments we've worked. Dad brings in his expertise of manufacturing, metrology, material science, aesthetics, as well as ergonomics. And we just bring in everything we have available to each of us as our expertise, and that gets added to the thought process that results in a design.
So this is a combination of all of that.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's not just us. We've built a lean, effective team across the world of electronics engineers and software engineers to support us as well.
In fact, one of them is quite near you guys as well.
Yeah, over in Austria. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Can you say the name?
And for the probably not.
That's fine. Yeah. I'm just curious.
And also, in addition to the nuts and bolts expertise we also have sort of higher level, so the more intellectual sort of input on design and industrial design from a professor friend our father has as well. So we've got connections to the nuts and bolts, the sort of high-end thinking in design, as well as down to manufacturing, electronics, and every detail that goes into it.
Before we talk about the details of your camera, I'm just curious because it kind of feeds into what you just said. It's like, first of all, how, for us on the other side of the world, it's very interesting to see that there's so much innovation in cameras coming from Australia, of course, with Blackmagic Design, which is, of course, you use the sensor and a lot of the technology from Blackmagic Design. So I'm curious, first of all, why do you think there's so much going on in that field in Australia? And is Blackmagic Design, have they been an inspiration for you guys in terms of, and Grant Petty and what they achieved over the years? And how did that kind of, because there must be a relationship between them and you for them to allow you to actually make this based on their sensor. So there's a whole kind of like big question mark over, like how does that relationship work?
Yeah. Well, we actually shot on Blackmagic cameras for years, so we have a lot of experience with them, and we've seen what Grant Petty's actually managed to achieve. He's really democratized filmmaking so that people can actually get their hands on really good hardware. Now, that basically wasn't possible. You go back 10 years and getting a cinema camera was not an easy task, and it involved a lot of money, and it was a very difficult thing to get into.
Yeah, so we love Blackmagic products and think they're an amazing company, and Grant Petty has just done amazing things for the cinema industry. So yeah, absolutely an inspiration. And as for how it came about that we're using their hardware, well, we were originally using it for our work. We love the color science. The quality is just amazing. We'll let other people talk about the quality, but yeah, it's amazing. And as for how they agreed to provide their hardware, it's really simple. When we first came up with the idea of the Nexus, before we did anything, we went and emailed Blackmagic. We said, hey, this is what we plan to do. We explained exactly what we plan to do. They came back, they said, great, go ahead. We're happy for you to use our hardware.
We even actually were made a dealer, so we actually get the cameras as official dealers. We're an official dealer.
Yeah, so they made us a dealer for that purpose, so that we can get all the hardware to make the Nexuses.
But does that mean you actually are getting their physical cameras, the what is it, the Pocket Cinema Camera 6K, and disassemble them, or are you working? You get the sensors from them?
Currently, we're getting the actual cameras and disassembling them.
Wow. Okay, but that's the next question. Then is of course, how can you make that work economically? Because your camera is not that much more expensive than a Pocket 6K, or it's actually almost the same price, right? So how does that work?
We are distributors, and we plan the whole process so that the cameras can be taken apart in a very efficient manner.
We've got very sophisticated bombs for the whole process. It's all very well mapped out, and it all works.
Interesting. No, it's just, it's people are curious about that kind of stuff because, I mean, I think it's just...
A lot of people, as you mentioned, have been wondering why Blackmagic are doing it. And we think they're just a great company that supports the community. They're interested in benefiting the filmmaking community. So, yeah.
No, it's absolutely amazing. And of course, I mean, I think let's dive into the technical details of the Nexus G1, because I think you guys, when this came out, we were like, wow, they literally addressed all the pain points that people had with Blackmagic cameras. One of them being, of course, the lack of an internal ND filter. Only very few ND filters, only very few of the Blackmagic cameras have built-in NDs, and they seemingly, for some reason, have kind of not continued to do that in the most recent versions of their cameras. The other thing is, of course, the integration of the FIS units that's directly into your camera. But let's go one by one. I want to start with the E&D challenge. So that is also one feature that Blackmagic Design didn't put into the Pixies. And I think it's arguably your biggest competitive advantage. Walk us a little bit through what it actually took to integrate a liquid crystal ND system into this compact chassis, and how do you actually achieve color neutrality across, 2 to 7 stops without the X pattern artifacts that plague really cheap variable ND filters?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so the electronic ND is a totally different technology to most of the NDs people know about. There's really 3 kinds of electronic ND, 3 kinds of neutral density filters in the world. There's standard glass ones, which are fixed, And if you get a number of different densities, you can shift them around so that you have different fixed densities in between the lens and the sensor. That's how a lot of companies, including Blackmagic, does it. So you have standard graduations of a stop or half a stop. And then you have the polarizer type, like NDs, that use 2 polarizers to block light. And as you mentioned, they all have X pattern issues. When you go to the high stop range, they have X pattern, and they also have color cast on highlights. So when we visualized the perfect camera, we realized we couldn't use fixed NDs. They're too limiting. We've had experience with them. Even if they're inside the camera, they're still very limiting to the exposure increments you can go to. And also you can't shift during a shot. You're obviously going to have it wipe and ruin your shot. So we chose electronic ND, which is the third kind of ND. It uses a special electronically active dye that is captured between pieces of glass. So to control the density, you simply changed the voltage applied, and it changes it from either 2 stops all the way up to 7 stops of ND stop.
With effectively perfect uniformity across the entire range.
Yeah, and it's 100% continuous, so there's no stop increments, there's no half a stop increments. It's perfectly continuous from 0% up to 100%.
Yeah, with all the features that we've integrated in here, the whole basically overarching idea of it is we went, what is the perfect cinema camera? And so basically this is what we create as the perfect cinema camera. That's what we visualize, and that's what this has been going to be.
And it's also not based on just our experience with filmmaking. We've also taken in comment from the entire community for a long time into the Nexus, and that is what has formed the Nexus to become what it is today. Yeah, so just going back to the ND, so yes, it was very challenging to get an electronic ND into our form factor. There's a few reasons for that. Firstly, we have a low flange distance mount option. We'll talk about that later. And obviously, when you have a very slim flange distance under 20 millimeters, there's much less space between your sensor and your lens mount flange. So that means you've got less space for a ND module. So we knew we wanted to make the electronic ND as a module and not fixed inside the camera, because some people may prefer to use fixed NDs for some reason, or they may want to invest only the amount of money for the camera body and later upgrade to the ND. We want the Nexus to be accessible. So we made the electronic ND a module. It inserts into the underside of the camera, so it's an upgrade. So it was very challenging to get the electronic ND thin enough so we could fit it between the mount flange and the sensor. So we worked a lot on that, and we've now got it down very thin and it fits.
Nice. And in fact, also to clarify as well, a lot of cameras that do use them, they are fixed in your plane between the sensor and your glass. But what we've done in here, we've actually got a mechanism that allows it to move out of the way. So you don't have that normal issue where, oh, I'm losing a stop of light because I've got this END thing in here and I'm going to have to unscrew it and take it out. So in our case, if you don't need to be stopping down light, you're losing nothing. You basically have perfect light going through.
It switches to clear glass.
Yeah.
Interesting. So actually, so far, before the announcement of your camera, there have only been really 2 manufacturers that have electronic variable ND built into their cameras, I think. And that is Sony with the FX6, FX9, and then also, I think originally with the FS5, or what is it? FS5, yeah. And then we had now we have the GFX Eterna 55 from Fujifilm. Fujifilm is actually using LCTech's technology, while Sony has their own. Are you able to share if this is your own development, or are you also licensing from LCTech?
We're also dealing with LCTech. Yes, they're an excellent company.
Great. Yeah, I thought so, because we've actually awarded them a Best of Show award at one of the shows before, because we were so amazed by the technology, and we love to see their openness to also get it into different brands now. And I think there's also a Metabones adapter now, so that's really great. Okay, very cool. Let's talk about material a little bit. Like, you went from polymer composite material to a full magnesium alloy and carbon fiber, which are materials that are usually really reserved for high-end RE or RED cameras. So was this a performance decision or a perception decision? And how much is that magnesium body actually doing for thermal management when it comes down to, of course, eliminating the original Pocket 6K's massive cooling vents?
Yeah, so it is both, it is functional. The reason we chose magnesium alloy. As you guys know, there's basically an integrated cage. So you've got mounting points all around the camera, 64 of them, top, back, sides, and integrated lens rig rods. So we needed to support the integrated cage, we needed a strong alloy that was both light and strong enough to support all of those threads for continued use. So initially we looked at aluminum alloy, which would have been the obvious choice, but then we realized we want the camera to be as light as possible. We want this to be as light as possible, so if you set it up with a small lens and a light battery, it's just super light and easy to use. The other thing is the camera is designed to be used on any movement type you like. So you can put this on a Cinelifter drone with a small, like a Laowa wide angle and powered via the drone. So it's light enough to put on a drone, comfortable to hold. So that's why we chose magnesium, the weight.
Yeah, we actually found, it's quite strange in the process, that this alloy is basically amazing stuff. It's very light, very tough, and it's really underutilized. There's very few products that actually make use of it, especially with the advanced coatings you can put on it, because we're actually micro-arc oxidizing the casing, which actually forms, it actually moves into the magnesium and basically means the outside of the camera is basically as hard as ceramic. It's a ceramic.
Yeah, so if you've got a very hard ceramic, another name for it is plasma electrolytic oxidation that oxidizes the surface, makes it a very consistent black and protects it from corrosion and wear, and it doesn't chip, it doesn't bobble like paint or anything like that. It's extremely tough. The other reason we chose magnesium is it works excellently for our chosen manufacturing method for making all these parts.
Very nice. So you're basically performing an organ transplant, right? I mean, you're disassembling the Pocket Cinema 6K G2, I think, and harvesting the main board, the sensor, and putting it into a new body. What was the most technically terrifying moment for you guys in that process? And was there anything that almost didn't work for you?
Well, we have experience with electronics and pulling apart electronics and fixing electronics. We've done that for quite a while, so there's nothing scary about pulling apart a Blackmagic camera for us. It doesn't bother us, everyday thing.
Yeah.
It's straightforward to get the parts out. It's very simple. When the parts come in a camera, we know they're already tested and their quality. So yeah, it all is straightforward to us. We've gone the process, we've done the steps. Yeah.
Awesome.
Just back to the housing as well, as you would have noticed, the side panels are actually carbon fiber. And we've had a lot of experience in drones because we've used drones for filming for years. And we were designed to build our own drones, and we've always used a lot of carbon fiber, obviously, for drones. And so when we went to choose the side panel material, we went straight to that, and we actually found that it ended up being by far the best material you could use, and it happens to look great too. So
yeah, super strong, super lightweight. So all the materials we've chosen have been to minimize the weight of the camera while maintaining exceptional structural rigidity. This thing's crazy rigid and strong. I'll also go back to another point you mentioned, thermal design. We have a totally custom hybrid cooling system. So it works both with a large cooling fan, centrifugal, to keep it actively cooled, but it also naturally has conduction to the magnesium alloy front casting, which then in turn conducts the heat to all the other castings. So it has an enormous passive heat sink on top of the active cooling, which itself is substantial.
Very cool. I mean,
as you guys
mentioned
in your last podcast, we tested at basically the hottest temperature in the world, and it was perfectly happy to do that.
Fill the full 1 terabyte of storage. Yeah, filled. The other thing is we've noticed quite often with cameras, they'll put the vents on the top. So it sucks in the top or somewhere else that can easily get rain or condensation or sweat dripping in it. So we've designed it so that any drip of sweat or anything coming straight down doesn't get in the cooling system. It's hidden under this little roof here, and it's protected.
Amazing. I mean, you guys went totally overboard when it comes to I/O. I mean, there's so many ports on this, which is amazing. I'm just amazed how you were able to put all of that in. Just walk us through, like the USP here in comparison to, of course, also the Pixie 6K, but also the Pocket 6K camera, because you offer a lot more connectivity.
Not only a lot more connectivity, there is no need to ever have any kind of external power source. We've got 280 watt of power delivery built in the camera right there through the D-tabs or LEMOs and then the various USB-C ports. So it's that basically there's no other camera in the world that has that built in like that.
Yeah, so what we've done in reply to the Pixis thing, we think it's really about different tools for different jobs and different tools for different users. With the Nexus, we're 100% focused on making it work absolutely efficiently and easily for the solo and small team filmmaker. Because when you're doing everything yourself, it has to be super simplified so you can focus on creativity. So that's what it's all about. That was the brief. So consequently, we have integrated power system with mini VMAP, one of the most common standards for small filmmakers. And there they have
that can be adapted to gold mount or NPF as well. So no matter what
full size VMAP.
It's good.
So then we've taken it a step further. Instead of just having built-in power to the camera, we've then output this power through all the different places where a filmmaker might find it to be useful. We've got it through DTAP on the side, which is basically the standard most people use. You can swap that out with a LEMO in case you use higher-end LEMO stuff. And then we've got PD out of all of the USB-C ports. So one thing I'd like to point out too is there's 3 ports you will see under the lens. You will have seen these in the film as well. They are our fizz control ports. Because we realized a really important thing, of course, is controlling your lens's settings. And most of the time, in reality, you're using manual lenses. And currently, if you want to have control over that, you either have to rack them by hand or set up some wireless fizz system and have someone else control that. But we realized it can really be integrated directly into the camera just as another onboard setting. So that's what we've done. You can connect up, we're currently compatible with the Tilta Nano 2 motors, which most people use, and that's what we've used for quite a while. So you can connect your Tilta Nanos to your focus, iris, and zoom, if you have a zoom lens, and with one cable to each motor, connect to the Nexus. It both powers the motor up to 20 volt, so it's very torquey, and also controls the motor and basically turns your lens variable into a setting in the Nexus, which you can control via Nexus OS on the touchscreens.
Yeah, we did a lot of testing with that and basically made sure that our power system can deliver anything that's required for any of those motors and well above what's required.
Yeah, we've gone through the process of using Tilta Nanos at 5 volt and then 7 volt. And
loading them up when you test it on their peaks. We've even graphed the actual spikes when they go to torque a big lens. We've done all that testing. So in the end, each port at the front can output 40 watt.
Yeah.
So you can even plug your laptop in and charge it if you wanted to.
But where the magic really happens with that is when we get our hand grip on here, which we'll be presenting later on. Basically what that does, it allows you to have all of your camera settings, your critical settings, like electronic ND as well as ISO, shutter, and all that, as well as your critical LED settings at your fingertips. So you can have focus under your finger, and then you can have electronic ND or whatever other setting you'd like under your other finger. Because what we found is trying to use an external fizz system is just always slows you down, having this big knob you've got to deal with or hand off to someone else. So for us, it just works amazingly to have direct control at your fingertips of all of your critical settings. It just makes sense. That's how it always should have been, really, we think.
Yeah. What we actually also have done here as well is every setting that's important doesn't require the touchscreen. So the touchscreen's got an amazing, we've got a really intuitive operating system on there that is very easy for people to understand straight off the bat. But if you're out in the field, it's negative 30 degrees and you've got gloves on, the whole camera can be operated off physical buttons without it if you need to do that.
Yeah, so we've got this main row of buttons down the right, which allows you to control all those primary settings and then a scroll wheel to adjust.
Very cool. Let me just touch back on the fizz system for a second. We've recently seen both Tilta and Viltrox announce autofocus adapters that actually are, right now I think both of them are E-mount to PL, but essentially they tap into the cameras themselves, like in this case Sony cameras, autofocus capabilities, and are able to translate that to a lens, which is kind of amazing because it kind of can make every cinema lens into a proper autofocus lens, leveraging off that AF technology that's inside the camera. Now, I'm aware you have not designed an autofocus system in this, but is this something you've thought about? Because, of course, you already have the fizz built in. You have this versatile adapter system that we can also talk about in a second. But is that something you have thought about adding in a future version or through further update? I don't know what's possible, because I think it would be almost a logical next step.
Yeah, exactly. We have that. That is the logical next step. So what we plan to develop later is an accessory that taps into any of these USB-C ports. That's another reason we have added a lot of these USB-C ports, because they just give you so much versatility. They give you a direct power and data link to our camera system. So what we plan to develop later on is a LiDAR accessory, which simply plugs into the Nexus. So the Nexus itself does all the thinking and all the processing. And basically we have a multi-LiDAR system that can attach simply on the rig rods right under the lens where it should be, to ensure the focus of the lens.
And because all the actual work will be done by our processor within the camera, the actual module will be tiny. We even actually thought about if we could even integrate it into the end of a rig rod, if it's possible.
That's very cool. Let's talk about the flexible mount and how that works, because you have basically a speed booster option, right?
Yes. So we've actually got an update on that to mention. Initially, the Nexus came with EF mount, and you could upgrade it to what we call the Auto Lock Micro Four Thirds mount. I think that's what you're referring to. And with the Micro Four Thirds mount, you could you could use Micro Four Thirds lenses, and you could also use a speed booster. That speed boost from Super 35 to full frame equivalent. We've actually built that. We've tested that. It's brilliant. But I'll return to this release we have towards the end. I'll mention that later. But yes, we have a speed booster. It works brilliantly, and we've tested it.
Okay, cool. Now I'm curious about the update, but you want to mention it at the end.
We haven't released it yet,
so people, stick around, listen to the end, watch to the end. We've talked about the economics of taking apart the camera, and I'm still amazed that you're able to offer it at that price. However, there have been some delays since you announced. I think you originally wanted to release during early 2025, if I'm not mistaken. Now we're moving into early 26. And also, I think a lot of people that, like from our community have, while everything, honestly, about your presentation, everything is top notch and, gives all the confidence that people need. You're still the new kid on the block. Yeah, sorry.
On that, in fact, we'll just mention that all of our marketing material we did ourselves in-house. We haven't actually got anybody external doing that, because we just brought in our expertise from the film and CGI work we've done in the past. All the CGI we did ourselves.
So we haven't gone out and spent all this money on marketing. It's just us.
Yeah, in fact, we basically no expenditure except for our time.
Yeah,
that's absolutely staggering and amazing, because your website, the presentation of the camera looks so much better than 95% of any manufacturer's cameras out there. So that's really, really great. Yeah. No, but basically what I wanted to ask is that the insurance or warranty question, because you said you are taking apart Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K, disassemble them and then build the Nexus G1. The question is, of course, for people investing the money, what is if, how is the relationship to Blackmagic Design when it comes to warranty? Let's say my sensor or the sensor in my Nexus G1 fails 2.5 years from now. How are you gonna handle warranties? Because for you guys, it's not you don't have a warehouse full of those sensors to replace it, right? Or how do you anticipate that working?
The warranties falls back to us. That's our responsibility, Nexus Cameras, to deal with. And basically, well, we have very direct access to all the hardware. So we have a 12-month repair or return warranty, and we plan to set up service agents in each continent. So rather than having to send back to Australia to get your camera repaired or replaced, we'll have a service agent who's skilled and trained on the Nexus G1 deconstruction and repair, and that can service each person in their continent. We already have contact with some very skilled individuals who we plan to set this system up.
So effectively, dealing with it will be as if you're dealing with any other camera company. We'll offer the same warranty, and in fact, the way we've designed the camera, it actually goes together quite modular, so repairs are actually very quick.
Yeah, that's another thing with the Nexus. We've designed it so that it can be assembled in big chunks. It's not this complicated thing where you have to put one piece on top of the other. It's comprised of 5 main sub-assemblies. They're relatively simple, assembled as their own sub-assembly, and then they're put together at the end. And together with the modular design and the side panels that come off, the Nexus is designed to be maintained easily and repaired if need be.
Now, how far along in the development are you? Because I mentioned there have been some delays, but it looks like what's on your table, and thanks to the quite impressive test footage that you've shared a couple of weeks ago, we see that it's actually working, it's out there. So, but what other steps do you have to fulfill that development is complete, or are you already manufacturing the cameras?
We're basically finalizing the details of getting everything tooled and into manufacturing. So we've been finalizing our surface coatings, finalizing the testing to ensure that they last to our standards. And then we're moving into the phase of actually getting the tools made to manufacture all these body parts. Some of the body parts require tooling and others don't. So we're currently working on the ones that do.
We have some great relationships with manufacturers to deal with basically everything you said.
Yeah, but basically, as for the timeline, we could have rushed out a product and dumped some of the features off that we promised and rushed something out, but we're not into that. Everything we do it's got to be excellence, and we're not going to rush anything out before it's done. So we don't like things taking longer, but it's got to be perfect.
Awesome. Are you able to share how many pre-orders you have roughly, and have you been overwhelmed by the amount of pre-orders, or is it what you expected?
It's a lot. Yeah, it's going really well. The community loves it. See, that's really where the Nexus started. It started us sharing about our experience and what we were building online, and naturally it grew from that, and people just loved it, and they gave their input, and that's how we arrived where we are today.
If you actually look at our Facebook and you go right down, you'll find how many different times we ran polls about this feature and that feature going back, and we really listened to all of that. And if you actually go through and you look at the voting, you'll find basically a lot of the features on here were the ones that those people really wanted. It worked out. It actually worked really well.
Very cool. Yeah, you definitely have managed to create quite a bit of buzz. I think I've seen a Reddit thread where people have called the Nexus G1 the Cybertruck of cameras. You know, what do you make of that? Ambitious, overpromised, and potentially vaporware. Does that comparison sting, or is it fair given the timeline?
I haven't come across that one, but we understand some people thought that in the beginning, but now we've shown the films, we've shown the product, so
yeah, we kind of expected that before showing it actually filming, but now that there's a film out and it's filming and here it is on the desk, those questions are kind of all over now. We haven't seen any of that anymore.
And when Blackmagic dropped the Pixie 6K after you announced the Nexus G1, was that something where you were like, well, this is that's a camera in also a box shape from the manufacturer that we actually source the sensors and some of the technology from, in a similar body, but the same sensor but no internal NDs, and of course a lot of other stuff you don't do. Was that a moment where you questioned the project a little bit, or were you still confident to push through?
Well, we see really as a different product for a different thing. When we saw it released, we were like, wow, finally, a Blackmagic box camera. And but yeah, really, we wanted to focus on making everything super streamlined for small team filmmakers. There's a lot of great sensors in boxes and all that kind of thing, but our brief wasn't to just put a sensor in a box. It was to put in all the features you need to work efficiently and focus on creativity. So we see it as just a different product for a different thing.
Okay,
It's
nice.
the ultimate gun cinema camera.
It sure seems like it. I mean, honestly, you have thought about everything, and there's a lot of things to think about. Now, one thing that I wanted to ask is also about the sensor, because by the time you bring out the camera, of course, this sensor is not new anymore. You know, like it's been out for a while. However, in the meantime, of course, there's also the 12K sensor from Blackmagic Design that's come out. They put it into the Ursa Cine 12K and now also the Pixis 12K. In our rigorous lab tests, where we always test latitude, exposure latitude, dynamic range, and rolling shutter, that sensor has performed really, really well, actually quite close to Alexa territory, and that's something that rarely happens. Now, is that something, you know, for a future version of the Nexus G1, is that something that you're thinking about, upgrading the sensor to that 12K sensor as well?
Well, for a start, we wanted to make the first Nexus accessible. So basically, the most number of people can get it. And that's why we went with the modular method. So you can get into it for a good price, and then you can build it up over time as you get more jobs. It's basically how we worked. But as for future cameras, it's possible.
It's possible, yeah. No, of course, I think you're doing the right thing. I mean, making it accessible is all, you know, what we're about, what CineD is about, making cinema accessible for a wide range of people. And that's where we're coming from also as DSLR filmmakers and so on. So it's absolutely amazing what you've achieved here. Now, what has to happen between now and Q1 2026 for units to actually ship? You actually said that you're tooling now. You're getting started with everything. What's the bottleneck now? Where do you think you know? Is there anything that's still holding up, or do you have a definite date when you're actually starting to ship?
There's no bottleneck really. It's just doing the work to get there. We're currently, well, basically, the next steps is getting the parts rolling in and then us assembling them. Because another thing you mentioned about the timeline being a bit longer, originally we planned to have a contract assembly company to assemble the Nexuses and do whatever they think best. But we realized when we got deeper into this project that we have to have control over every aspect of the assembly and testing so that we know all the elements that have to be tested are tested. So we changed our plans halfway through, and now we're going to be assembling all of the Nexuses in our own facility. So basically, to answer your question, it's getting the tooling completed, getting the parts and setting up all the assembly, completing our quality testing methodology, implementing that, and assembling units.
We've actually now got a full facility that we're putting together. It's 26,000 square foot. That should be like 2,500 square meters in metric.
Yeah, so we've got all the space to set up to assemble this and expand as much as we need to.
And that includes, we've actually got a whole section which is climate controlled lab set up so that we can do sensor assembly with zero dust and all that. That's already done. We've already got that. This is actually,
amazing.
it's actually part of what we're sitting in at the moment.
I hope you don't mind me asking, where's the funding coming from? You can't impossibly finance that through the deposits.
Well, we actually, beyond that, we do have a entrepreneurial backup that we're working with a really good guy.
Yeah, but as for the development of the camera, we have a lot of the expertise ourselves, and we have a lean, efficient team, so we're able to get a lot done without spending crazy amounts. Yeah,
because obviously, looking at something like this, most companies would go, well, this is probably going to cost like 5-10 million to develop something like this. But because of the skill sets,
and we've been able to find some excellent engineers as well. Yeah.
That's amazing. Now, if Nexus succeeds, you've proven that filmmakers can really out-design the manufacturers when they stop listening. And I think sometimes do stop listening. Do you think that scares the industry, or does it just mean that somebody from Blackmagic, Canon, or Sony will just get out and hire you guys?
Well, I would say we're not only filmmakers, you see. Obviously, we're industrial designers, so we have experience in product design and commercialization. So I wouldn't say they'll be too worried about filmmakers in general coming out and making cameras. I think it is indicating a shift in the market towards probably a shift of people coming from sort of hybrid mirrorless, the not so great codec cameras, and being able to move up to a higher quality camera because the usability is coming there. We think we've had a lot of people say the Nexus G1 is going to be my first cinema camera. Because even in our experience, there is a strong feeling that you should compromise and go down to a mirrorless camera and shoot a not so great codec because they're just easy to use and they're small and all this. But we think because we brought all these features into the Nexus, someone can now come up from that compromise of using a lower quality camera that's being consumerized. They can come up to the cinema quality imaging, and they have all these features there to support them to do that.
And at this point, it's way beyond just the two of us. We're a tech company now.
Yeah, so we don't plan it to just be the Nexus G1 and that's it. We see the Nexus as a whole design philosophy of integrating everything you need to make your workflow efficient. The word Nexus itself is the interconnect of things. So that's where the name comes from. So we see future cameras, accessories, all around the idea of absolutely 100% optimizing it to make your workflow amazing for a small team and solo filmmakers.
Great.
We actually have to be careful we don't go, wow, that'd be good, we could do that as well. That's why a lot of features that aren't necessary right now are modules. That way the camera can actually get out there into the market, and then we can continue going, we can make this even better.
Yeah, so the approach we've taken with designing the Nexus is we've thought about everything up front that we can think of. We've taken enormous feedback from the community, and we've used our own experience to think of everything that would be useful and make a cinema camera work better. And we've designed with expandability in mind. That's why we've resorted to using USB-C ports, because they add enormous expandability potential. And that's why we've allowed all this I/O, and it's also why we've integrated advanced wireless systems, not only your standard Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. We've got a Zigbee transceiver module, which allows us to interface with longer range accessories,
which are actually hiding in here.
Yeah, so talking about wireless, as we mentioned in one of our previous updates, once we decided to use magnesium, we came to the realization magnesium blocks radio signals amazingly. So that presented a challenge as far as getting strong signal strength out of our wireless transceivers. So basically, long story short, we went through a lot of iterative ideas and possible designs, and we've come up with a dual antenna system. So we've got built-in antennas behind a polymer window, board antennas, and we've also got MMCX ports on the top left and right. So basically, it means you can have the sleek body without antennas sticking out. But if you need longer range, like controlling the Nexus on a drone setup, you can put in the antennas and get long range for camera control.
Amazing. You've really come a long way with this project. Now, I think you first announced it, like 4 years ago? And what?
I don't think long ago. Yeah, to check.
The main film that basically was the first time you guys would have made a story on us was just 12 months ago. In fact, we released it mid-December last year. It was like within four or 5 days of today. And that was when the camera project really started happening then.
Since you got started, or let's say since you first started thinking about the project, I mean, a lot of you must have learned so much. If you were able to go back to that time, what would you tell your former selves? Like what you could, like if you could just talk to yourself and inform yourself about what's happened and how everything evolved. Is there one tip that you would give to yourself in order to make your lives easier in the meantime?
I would go back with the design brief describing the Nexus G1 and say, here, make this.
See, and maybe get the CAD file on drive and hand that over. That'd save a lot of time.
Yeah, I guess a lot of things evolve over time. Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to put out a video that's amazing, that like promises all those features, but then actually delivering them is a whole different story. So it's amazing that you actually haven't, like you said, you haven't compromised on any of the features.
Yeah, it's all about excellence, and when it comes out and it'll be in your hands, it's going to be excellence.
We apply this in everything we do, from the commercial films we do to anything. It's all about excellence and getting it absolutely perfect. That's something we're very focused on in everything we do.
That is effectively where this came from, because in order to do that in the film production work we did, our gear had to be as optimal as possible, because we just wanted, this has to be amazing, has to be perfect. Every shot had to be perfect.
We use a lot of different movement types. We use sliders, motion control sliders, gimbals, all kinds of stuff. So we weren't simply hand-holding a camera. We were constantly swapping from different movements. So that's especially where you notice the limitations of other systems.
Even our sliders and things, we've heavily modified those, replaced the stepper motors, changed the drivers, designed and printed our own belt systems. Because one of our use cases is we've used a probe lens on a slider, with quite fast movement, and we found it was very hard to get anything on the market that was capable of whipping a probe lens around that wasn't going like this all over the place. So we had to make it ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So the Nexus slider is next?
It's actually on the website. You go down to potential slider.
Really?
Lighter. No, slider, I don't know about a slider. It could
the
be.
lighter, not the slider. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
No, I mean, Thomas, you said before that you're not only filmmakers, you're only engineers. I would say you're not only engineers, you're also filmmakers, and that makes the difference, because most people building cameras are actually mostly engineers, right? And they listen to filmmakers, but you have your own experience and you can totally empathize with the feedback that you're getting from the community, but you're basing it on your own experience, and that's what makes the difference. And I think if you look at, the successful projects always come from the intersection of art and technology. And historically, if you look at very successful companies in the tech space, they always seem to come out of, sometimes there's one creative person and one engineering person. You both seem to be both at the same time. But that's actually, for me, what makes the difference here.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree with that. Yeah. That's something experience. Well, it's the experience in both worlds that allows it to come together how it has. Yeah. As well as taking input from filmmakers across the world. Yeah.
Amazing. So just a quick, few rapid fire questions. One feature that you had to kill that still hurts.
I'm not even sure there is one, is there?
There was one, it doesn't hurt because it was the correct choice. At some point we were considering having LoRa built in for long-range signal control, but we ended up deciding Zigbee is better because there's already systems on the market that use it, like the Tilta Nano motors, and that radio architecture was better, but that doesn't hurt. We can also add LoRa via a USB adapter if you want to.
Nice. Any accessory partnership you want to announce but can't just yet?
We've had significant inquiries, but no, we can't mention anything yet.
Okay. It's still a bit early. I know the camera is not shipped yet, but is there any professional production that will want to use the Nexus G1 that already committed to that?
We've actually had a lot of inquiries about that. We're actually quite surprised because we're more looking at people like us that do run and gun type filming, but we've got quite a lot of inquiries from bigger studios doing bigger productions for some companies which I won't name that are big in the industry.
And also big documentary, as well. We were surprised. Yeah. Because this, of course, is designed, as we keep saying, for solo and small team filmmakers, for people like us. But we have had a lot of bigger companies inquiring about it for bigger productions where they have dedicated camera operators and all that, which we were surprised about. But it does make sense because if the camera is optimized for an individual user, it's great for a team to use as well.
So when this is released, it will start showing up in some productions pretty quickly.
Well, I think you're honestly arriving in the market at a time where, budgets, especially in the high end, are shrinking. And we see this huge boom of smaller cinema cameras, or in general, smaller cameras that are used for big productions. I mean, one of the first things that we saw that was a really high profile thing was the FX3. Used for The Creator by Oren Sofa, which we also interviewing actually tomorrow for another episode of this podcast. And I think now this whole resistance in the industry of using less expensive cameras for high-end production has completely eroded. And with this crisis that Hollywood finds itself in, I think more and more bigger productions actually need to, I mean, they're not going to save money. The first thing they're not going to save money on is probably not the camera, because, the above the line costs are actually much higher than the technology costs. But still, we see a lot of, there's no hesitation anymore to use more affordable cameras on high-end production. So I think actually when the Nexus G1 will be out, I think you'll be probably seeing a lot more high-end production using it if you guys deliver on the promise and it actually works really well and does everything you promise it to do. I don't think there's any reason for it not to be used on very high-end productions as well.
Yeah, totally agree. That's what we're seeing as well. It used to be, okay, it's a big production Ari or some other high-end Venice or something, and that's it. But there has been a change in that probably in the last 5, at most probably 10 years, probably the last 5 years mostly, where more and more you are seeing these lower cost cameras come into the market. I guess it is because the lower cost cameras now can just do so much. Why there's less justification for a super high-end camera when there's a lower cost option that can do such amazing footage and perform.
Absolutely. And there is also, I think in the old days, I mean, when we started with CineD, when it was still called Cinema 5D, in the DSLR revolution times, basically you had to build up your camera, and I had to show up on a set with you would rig up your DSLR just to make it look like a professional film camera, which was ridiculous because the funny thing is Exactly. I mean, I bought in 2007-8, I bought a Sony EX3 with a tiny sensor. And then a year later, the 5D came out, and I would shoot stuff. I would have the 5D as a B camera on my shoots as a documentary filmmaker or a commercial filmmaker also. And then in the edit, I would end up with 90% of footage from the 5D. And I would just have the EX3 there because it looks cool. I think those days are over. Now clients also understand that small cameras can really achieve amazing quality. So I think that has changed as well. Just the capability of those cameras. I mean, people would freeze in front of your camera because they would think you taking a photo. I think those times are over.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Yeah. But there is still, of course, an element when you go and work for a client, they want to see you have proper gear. But of course, it doesn't have to be enormous now. It doesn't have to be like the massive systems you're talking about. But that has been a consideration with the Nexus as well. It's designed to look like it means business. It's not designed to look like a toy or anything like that.
Yeah, I think you've also, I think this cube form factor, as soon as I've recently tested the Pixis 12K. We haven't put out that test yet, but and it's a very similar form factor. I just think this cube form factor, also like the Komodo has that as well. I think once a filmmaker works with that, for me, it's kind of the perfect form factor. I always have challenges with the mirrorless form factor because it's not ideal, especially like for a lot of different use cases. And you can always make a small camera bigger, but you cannot make a big camera smaller. However, if it's a really small camera, the rigging becomes an issue, and it's much easier to build a shoulder rig for a kind of cube-shaped camera than it is for a mirrorless camera. So I think your form factor makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and also we haven't gone simply for a cube. We've gone with a recessed system on the front and back. So it allows us to get our center of gravity exactly where your hands hold it. So it's balanced in hand. We've thought about ergonomics a lot for this. And also it reduces your overall package length since your battery gets recessed. So
we technically call it an X form factor.
Yeah, so it's not your standard box. And also the idea with the standard box camera is it's a sensor in a box. You've got to build it up with a ton of accessories to make it usable. That's not the idea with the Nexus. Basically, the reason we've made it box shaped is because it's amazing to hold, it's balanced, it's got everything built in, and if you do wish to attach any accessory for a specialized purpose, like say a handle or anything, it's super easy to attach. The sides are flat and super useful. You can mount it on its side even if you'd like. So it's more about versatility than making it so that you can build it up to be a hard-to-use monster rig.
And then something we actually should mention as well is this will shoot all day on a single battery.
Wow, really?
Which is pretty important. So if you look at that film we put out, that whole film can easily be shot on one pack.
Yeah, so this supports MIDI V-mount, and which allows you to use all the way up to 99 watt hour or bigger. Or if you adapt it out, if you really want to go bigger, you can put on a full-size V mount and they can go up to like 200 watt hour.
That's interesting because Blackmagic cameras are not necessarily known to be very power efficient. Quite the contrary, actually, especially the older ones. So what have you changed in order to be that much more power efficient?
Well, we've based the whole camera around a larger battery system, so we're not relying on a MPF 550 or the smaller Canon LPE6. The problem with those batteries is they are overdrawn by these kinds of cameras. It causes the battery to sag. So if your battery is brand new, it might work okay. You might get an acceptable performance. But after a year or maybe even 6 months, the battery is not so healthy anymore. And it sags a lot when the camera draws on it when you start recording. So basically, with an MPF, you won't even be able to flatten it because it'll sag, it'll hit its voltage cutoff and you're done. You have to change your battery. What we've done with the Mini V-mount, because it is a bigger battery, it's a 4S system, it doesn't have that sag issue. And on top of that, you've got the higher watt hour size that you can actually physically put on there. And then we've minimized how that affects the actual overall package size by recessing it. So if you want to use a 50 watt hour, it's perfectly flat recess, and you can use up to a 99 watt hour and it's still easy to use and compact.
Very nice. Is there one internet comment about Nexus that genuinely made you laugh? Quite a few, I guess.
There's a lot of really funny, positive ones. Like the good old "take my money" is funny to see. Oh yeah, the gift, the actual gift with the old
Futurama.
Yeah, that one's quite funny.
Yeah, there's too many. Yeah.
Last question before actually you wanted to share a secret, but I think I kind of asked that before, but I have to ask again. If Blackmagic called you tomorrow and offered you to acquire Nexus Camera, yes or no?
Well, basically, we want to get the Nexus out to everyone who supported the project. So we're committed to get this out no matter what and have it to our standard of excellence, have it doing everything we've said it will do. So that's our focus. So, yeah.
Well, knowing Graham Petty and, I think he's just amazed of your project. I'm sure, I've rarely seen, every time we ran into him at the trade show at the Blackmagic booth in the press area, he's so giddy and excited about new technology and great ideas. Like you said, they're genuinely just interested in helping the filmmaking community, and that's amazing. So I'm sure he's completely over the moon of what you guys are building here. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, great.
But yeah.
Petty, from what we've heard, is all about the community. He's just done amazing work in democratizing tech for everyone. So yeah,
not only the camera vision in the actual software and DaVinci Resolve, that's pretty much taken the industry now.
Yeah,
and it's amazing software.
Are you planning to come to NAB next year?
Yeah, we would be. Very likely, yes, yeah.
That's amazing.
Are you
be happy? Of course, it's our. I've been to every NAB since 2008. So yeah, we'll be there. I'll be happy to meet you guys. Yeah, of course. But you wanted to share something. You wanted to share something secret or announce something, I think, before.
Yes. Anything else you'd like to mention before?
I think the only thing that we probably didn't cover is the Max Drive. Our storage system, and yes. You go with that first.
Yeah, so our Max Drive, basically what we've done, we've created a drive bay which you can use standard CFast in. So it's not proprietary. You can get your ordinary CFast card and put it in there and record like usual. But we've gone a step further and we've created the Nexus Max Drive. Basically, what we found with CFast is not only is it expensive for the storage amount it offers, it is the weakest link in the chain. When you are trying to record in a hot environment, it's generally the first thing to overheat, depending on the camera, because there's not much cooling built into a CFast card. It's a little bit of plastic and a sheet, little bit of thin metal. So what we've done with the Nexus Max Drive is we've made storage that is faster than a CFast card. It's lower cost by a wide margin. It's 1 terabyte, so it's nice and big. and it has excellent thermal performance. It's designed in a magnesium alloy casing so that when it is inserted into the Nexus, it has amazing thermal conduction to the casing, the rear casting. So it basically means that the storage meter is now super reliable and keeps cool the same as the rest of the camera.
You mentioned CFast, but would that be the same for CF Express Type B, which really is the standard now?
This accepts CFast or Nexus Max Drive.
No, I mean you compared the drive to CFast, but does CF Express Type B have the same thermal problems? Because a lot of other new cameras have CF Express Type B.
We haven't tested. They're a similar form factor. They're a bit longer, a bit narrower. So I couldn't really say. Yeah.
But effectively, with this card in this camera, every mode can be recorded in, even to the absolute minimum compression, which funnily enough does actually drop frames with a CPass card. Oh. And in this camera, it won't.
Yeah, so we've got a higher constant write speed. Yep.
Actually, let's talk about codecs a little bit. What codecs does the camera support?
So we've got B-RAW, which is amazing. It's pretty much all we use. We've got constant compression, we've got constant quality, and then we've also got ProRes, HQ, 422, LT, and proxy.
Okay, cool. We've seen the first cameras support multiple RAW formats. Is that something you're looking into for the future? Maybe even ProRes RAW or some other type of RAW?
Yeah, that's on our radar. We've heard about ProRes RAW being implemented in some cameras. So yeah, we're considering how that could work.
Yeah, as far as I know, Apple is not charging for the license. They just need to kind of, accept that you're doing it, and then you can do it. That's why we're seeing it pop up in more and more cameras. I think Nikon ZR is the first one, ZR, that actually has this red codec, the NRAW and ProRes RAW internally, so people have options. Because of course we know that Blackmagic RAW is amazing. However, it's getting better, but it's still not supported by all the NLEs, which is a bottleneck for some productions that are relying on, let's say, an Avid workflow.
Yeah. Well. Yeah, basically we use B-RAW because we use DaVinci, and DaVinci is just amazing to use. Of course, we know some sort of older workflows still use ProRes, so in that case, you can shoot ProRes HQ.
Great. All right, let's move on to the new thing.
Okay. Yes, so as an introduction, you guys probably remember the auto-lock micro four thirds mount module that we released for the Nexus G1. That was, as I mentioned, a micro four thirds module that allowed you to use micro four thirds lenses and adapt to any longer flange distance lenses. We did that because it's more versatile than having an EF mount. You can adapt to other mounts like Nikon mount and PL or whatever standard longer mounts. But we originally had the thought to somehow make the Nexus more adaptable so it could accept any lens. But we put that on hold until we got the development of the rest of the camera done. But now that we've got there, we have come up with a new product. This is the Nexus U-mount.
Oh,
so
nice.
This here is our own universal mount system. So basically, the Nexus has a U-mount, which means you're not limited to any particular lens mount. You can mount any lens in the world on the U-mount, anything from a E-mount lens up to a Panavision Ultra Vista. And the way it works is we've optimized our flange distance to the nth degree to get our E and D module as thin as possible and everything absolutely as thin as possible. And we've designed this special mechanism that allows us to have a 15mm flange distance universal mount with a very large throat diameter. And what this allows us to do is adapt to nearly any lens mount that exists. E-mount, L-mount, RF mount, of course the longer ones like PL, EF or anything. So it is another step in versatility, so you're not limited to micro four thirds lenses, or if you had an L-mount limited to L-mount, you can use any cinema mirrorless lens on the U-mount. Simply you have an adapter plate, zoom in, for each lens mount kind. This one here is E-mount, and then it simply snaps into the mount and locks. And it's a simple push button to release. And it's a positive lock system, so it's rock solid.
And this is the world's first system that's capable of doing this.
Yeah, we've designed this from scratch.
Wow, that's really amazing. So I can literally put any lens, any lens on this camera.
Basically, any lens you can imagine can go on the Nexus G1 now.
So this is, I think the shortest flange mount we've known so far was the Z mount from Nikon.
Yes.
And I guess that is even thinner.
Yeah, so we've made it super thin so that it can be easily adapted up to other flange distances. There was really two constraints with this design. It was a super low flange distance, but also the throat diameter. We're limited by the throat diameter because we didn't want to make it too big, because then the whole front of the camera has to be made bigger, the body would have to be made bigger, and it all gets too big. So we've made a very compact, very easy to use mechanism, which is able to accommodate these other mounts while staying super thin and smallest diameter possible. And we've tested it and it works.
That's amazing. So is that going to be standard with every Nexus G1, or is it an optional accessory? And is it replacing what you've announced so far when it comes to mounts?
Good question. We haven't decided that yet. We've just come up with it.
Well, I guess it's something that a lot of people will want. I mean, I have no doubt that a lot of people would kind of purchase it separately. However, of course, just having this versatility immediately opens up a whole new world of potential buyers for this camera, because we know how many people are invested in E-mount glass, for example, because they're on Sony, with a lot of people willing to, switch the system right now, because Sony has been arguably a little bit lacking when it comes to innovating in terms of internal RAW recording and so on with their own cameras. So we've seen a huge interest in the Nikon ZR for that reason, because you can adapt E-mount lenses to Z-mount. But just giving people this accessibility, I would suggest, just put it in the box. And I think a lot more people would actually pre-order the Nexus G1. But that's just my wild guess.
Okay, yep, we'll consider that.
The other feature it has, which might matter for you guys, because I think you like anamorphic lenses, yes, is with this mount, you can actually rotate and lock the anamorphic lenses in 45-degree increments.
Yeah, so it's not like a bayonet, which is stuck always in one end position. It could be 45-degree increments, upside down, whatever you like.
Oh, so I can shoot vertical open gate.
Yes, yes.
And it just works. It just feels so natural. You just bang lenses on there, click, and you get a nice, satisfying click, and away you go.
Yeah, so because obviously EF and PL still makes up most of the lenses on the market that most people use, especially PL in the higher end. But more and more, we've had people ask, can you please give it L mount? Can you please give it E mount? And also, we've been noticing more and more there's some pretty interesting budget cinema glass coming out, anamorphic and aspherical. And it's coming out quite often in L mounts and E mounts a lot of the time, and not the longer flange distance mounts. So we saw there is a move happening in the lens market, and this is where the mounts are going. So we had to support all of them.
So effectively, we've completely future-proofed the mounts on the Nexus G1.
That's amazing. Can't wait to see actually, like you putting it onto the camera. Can you demonstrate that, or?
We haven't currently got on the camera. We've got the Nexus as it was originally with the EF mount. This will be demonstrated on the camera soon.
That's actually was going to be the next update, which it will still be, but it's just been announced now instead of in the next.
Yeah, exclusive to CineD.
Nice. Very nice. That's amazing. No, I think it's great. I mean, like you said, I think there's still a huge amount of PL and EF lenses out there. However, we've seen a shift over the last few years. And I mean, essentially for camera manufacturers, the lenses, the cameras are like the Trojan horse, right? They kind of make people buy a camera and then invest them into their lens ecosystem, especially if it's a proprietary one like with Sony or Canon. And then you start at some point buying the E-mount or RF or L-mount lenses. And a lot of people don't realize, if my manufacturer, doesn't keep outputting a new camera that I want to upgrade to, I'm kind of stuck, because it's you have the whole lens ecosystem. And the reason why people start buying their lenses is because the autofocus is very good. You can't get proper autofocus with an adapter very often. So, but then it's like a one-way street. So you kind of dissolving that and enabling people to use all those lenses through an adaptable mount is amazing. Now, of course, last question about the mount. It doesn't have any electronic connectors, right? So is there a way for people to, control their aperture? I mean, I know there's no autofocus, but is there a way to change the aperture?
There will be electronic control, yeah, as you mentioned, aperture for select mounts. We have yet to decide and release that.
Yeah, because that, of course, will be crucial for people to use that. Yeah, and again, like I said before, the autofocus. I mean, you mentioned the LiDAR. I hope you can also look into maybe even putting an autofocus sensing system inside your operating system, because there, through the Tilta or Viltrux solutions, there will be ways to actually make any cinema lens effectively an autofocus lens now, and just that for me is the last, the cherry on top, if you could put that in, because then you literally have all the functionality that anybody could ever want, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Because we're centralizing all the lens control and data inside the Nexus, we can easily have your lens catalog set up in the Nexus. So we can have a LiDAR tightly integrate with that. So you don't have to go through a setup every time. You have your lens catalog in the Nexus, you attach your lens, the LiDAR already knows what lens is on because you programmed it before.
Yeah, we've actually gone to a lot of trouble in designing Nexus OS, which is the operating system that runs the camera, to be able to manage all these features and have the power behind it to do so, and over-the-air updates. So basically, as we add these modules, it'll just be part of the software package.
Yeah, and we've got access to so much integration into Nexus OS. There is so many things we can do that we're not going to mention, but there's so many potential avenues for improvements and accessories and things that can benefit from the tight integration of centralized control into the Nexus. One example, which we've released, is with the ZB transceiver, we can have long-range control with a Nexus controller, which would give you control not only over the camera, but all of your lens settings, fizz included. So there's an enormous amount of exciting possibilities going forwards with developing upon this as well.
Yeah, well, we've also put a lot of subtle little things in there, which I don't think, we probably mentioned them in the update, but all the buttons are actually RGB backlit. So if you're shooting in the dark, you can even control the output color of those. And we've also, because it's all integrated with our operating system, we can actually use those RGBW LEDs for basically signaling certain modes and scenarios and different things within the camera system if we choose to, or they could just sit there just with a subtle backlight. So yeah, we've designed it to be easily modified and expanded even after someone has it in their hands.
That's amazing. So you can even put up Christmas lights for people shooting just before Christmas. So that's amazing.
Technically, we could, yeah. And the last thing you want to mention also is audio. We use XLR microphones. We're using a Sennheiser shotgun now, and it's just super easy if you can just put your microphone direct into camera. So we've gone with dual full-size XLRs. No adaptation required. Full-size XLR with phantom power. Direct into camera with quality preamps.
Amazing. Guys, I'm honestly, sometimes you hear about a project and then you learn more about it and you get less excited because the marketing was better. This time it's the opposite. Your marketing was amazing. It already got us very interested in the camera, as so many others on the internet. But now, after talking to you guys, I'm even more excited to get my hands on the camera and also review it, hopefully. It's just an amazing project, what you've pulled off. Honestly, hats off. Not something we expected at all, and I'm sure it's going to be a massive success.
Great. Thanks, Nino. I appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much for the time and giving the community this update. Also very excited about the flexible lens mount that you have now, just basically supporting all the lens mounts on the market. That's literally something that, was very unexpected, but it's amazing. Thank you guys. I hope we can reconnect after the camera is out, when a lot of people got it already in their hands. When you have more updates to share, we're happy to reconnect.
Yes, that was great. Be excellent.
All good, Nino. Yep, really good.
Thank you, guys. And thanks, everybody, for watching. This was an amazing special episode of CineD Focus Check. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or on YouTube. Leave a comment. Email us at podcast@cined.com if you have any questions. We will answer those questions on one of our regular news type episodes in the coming weeks. And yeah, see you next time.